Welcome, everybody. We are excited to kick off our lunchtime case study webinar series. We're starting with local Ithaca company, Snug Planet, who have been making homes more comfortable and affordable around Tompkins County in this area for quite a while now, and are a partner in our HeatSmart program. And I'm really excited about this. So without any further ado, I'm going to start by sharing my screen so we can get going here. Hold on a second. Yes, so I am going to recording this so that we can post it on our website. So if anybody objects to having their presence on this webinar posted on our website, please send me a message to let me know about that. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And we shall get started here. That's not what I want. This is what I want. Present. Okay. So welcome. As I said before, my name is Lisa Marshall. I am the HeatSmart Tompkins co-director, along with my colleague Jonathan Comstock, who has been the director for several years now and was the founder of HeatSmart Tompkins. HeatSmart Tompkins is a nonprofit. We are dedicated to education and outreach. We make no profit off of any sales of heat pumps or any home improvements that you may decide to embark on as a result of working with us. We are in business as a nonprofit to talk about climate solutions that will make your home comfortable and healthy, and may involve some significant cost savings on your bills. So it's a win-win-win for everybody. Also, heat pump installations and insulation jobs are also a great way to help boost the local economy. Those are one kind of jobs that can never be outsourced. So we feel like this work is good for the local economy, as well as being good for you and for the climate. So HeatSmart is an idea that started here, right here in Tompkins County. But as you can see by this map, it is such a great idea that there are now 15 HeatSmart or clean heating and cooling programs across all of New York State. Fantastic. I don't know what's happening. Well, that's much better. So can you, that was my opening slide, and here's the slide I was on. Thank you, Lindsay, for letting me know. So as I was saying, there are now 15 HeatSmart or clean heating and cooling programs across New York State, and more soon to be added. And what we are doing is, as I said, just helping make it easier for homeowners and businesses to get HeatSmart. Next slide, please. So we like to say we'd like to be your guide, and what we strive to do is remove barriers to you taking action in your own home or business. And the way we do that is by providing transparency around costs and quality of the types of home improvements that we recommend. We provide information, such as these webinars, on all the options. And we hope that we instill confidence in you in this technology so that you can make good decisions about your home that work well for you. Next slide, please. So in the time of COVID-19, we are doing different kinds of outreach. Normally, our installer partners and us love to meet people face-to-face and get to know you in person. But right now, we can't do that. So we encourage you to make good use of our website. There are a lot of great resources on our website, and more being added every day. The lunchtime case study webinar series is kicking off today. You're already here. And after that, we're going to have some more evening webinars, so look for those getting posted soon. We're also encouraging people who already have systems to make little home tour videos for us, and we'll be posting those on social media and on our website. And very importantly, our HeatSmart installers are going to be doing remote assessments of your home with your cooperation, talking to you on the phone. They may look at your home on Google Earth to get an idea of your property and the size of your home. They may ask you to send your energy bills and take pictures or even video for them to help make a good assessment. And they're finding that although it is quite different than meeting you in person and spending time with you, it is a very effective way to get a handle on your energy system and what your home needs are. Next slide, please. Okay, so it's my very great pleasure to kick off this webinar series by introducing John Harrod, the founder of Snug Planet. So over to you, John, and I'm going to mute myself now.
Thanks, Lisa, and thank you everyone for attending today. My name is John Harrod, and I am president of Snug Planet. I got into green energy because I was interested in finding a rapidly deployable and scalable solution for climate change. I first got interested in this when I was a grad student back in the 90s, and I lived in a series of uncomfortable and expensive to heat houses, and I saw firsthand the real need for this kind of work. I founded Snug Planet in 2006 with my wife, Elizabeth, and one employee. We've now grown to a staff of 18, so we're just about due for a new company photo. I am excited to be participating in HeatSmart. I feel like we share a lot of the same values. We want to see as many people as possible make the transition to green energy. As we look to transform our whole energy system, the kind of work that we're doing is going to need partnerships between contractors, nonprofits, and communities. Today, I'm going to be talking about air source heat pumps. We really love air source heat pumps. Some of the other companies that you talk to will lead with geothermal systems, and those are great technologies. We lead with air source heat pumps. We like them because they work, they're affordable, and they're scalable. There's an air source solution that we can find for just about every house in our area. Our goal as a company is to be an industry leader in this technology and to really lead by example, setting the standard for best practices in design and installation. And we're also really passionate about making this technology accessible to low and moderate income folks, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. This is our homeowner, Adrienne. She lives in the town of Ithaca. And she called us because she was interested in getting her house off of fuel oil, which was very expensive. And part of her motivation was to reduce her cost, and part of it was to reduce her footprint. Sustainable Tompkins and the Finger Lakes Climate Fund made a really nice little video about this project. Unfortunately, it's really hard to show YouTube videos over Zoom. It just doesn't go well. But I would encourage you to check out this link. It's a very nice little video, and in it, Adrienne describes the project in her own words. The house was built in 1950. It is actually a Sears Roebuck kit house. It's a little bit less than 800 square feet of conditioned space over an unfinished basement. This was her heating system. It's a oil-fired boiler, and she was interested in getting rid of it. Her oil costs were on the order of $1,300 to $1,500 a year, so it was quite expensive to operate. And of course, there are all the issues associated with fuel oil, from having that tank in the basement to having a noisy system to having the smells of fuel oil infiltrating your house from time to time. This was her water heater. It's what's known as an indirect tank, meaning that the heat for her domestic hot water actually comes from the boiler, and hot water is circulated through a heat exchanger in the tank to heat it. This system works. It's fairly common in houses that have boilers. The drawback is that what that means is that the oil boiler needs to fire year-round to keep the water hot. And so there's times of the year when there's no need for any space heating, but this boiler is firing up to heat the hot water, and a lot of waste heat is entering the basement at a time of year when you'd really rather not have any extra heat in the house. We did a complete energy audit of the house to determine the condition of the building envelope and to help figure out how we could make this transition to heat pumps. What we found was that this house had already been pretty well insulated. This is a look up in the attic, and you can see that there's a nice thick blanket of cellulose there that was installed by a previous contractor. If the insulation had been substandard, that's definitely something that we would want to propose and include in the work scope. And we have 2 crews that install both cellulose and spray foam insulation. So this is definitely a service that we can offer. We did an air leakage test on the house using a blower door, and we found that the house was actually fairly tight. We found a few targeted opportunities to reduce the air leakage. So this is the floor plan of the house, and you can see it's a pretty simple layout. We've got 2 bedrooms, one of which is used as an office, a living room and kitchen that form a open floor plan area, and then a small bathroom and a hallway. We entered all the data that we gathered in the energy audit on insulation levels, windows, air leakage, surface areas of all these different house components into a software program that told us how big a heat pump we would need to heat the house in very cold weather. And this guided our process from that point on. What we found is that this house could be heated for with a system that was just under 30,000 BTUs. So the design load was around 28,000 BTUs, meaning in very cold weather, that's how much heat the house would need to maintain a comfortable indoor temperature. This is the design that we settled on. We placed a outdoor unit over here on the east wall of the house. This is a multi-zone air source heat pump, meaning that one outdoor unit can connect to 3 indoor heads. And it's rated to deliver 30,000 BTUs, so enough capacity to keep the entire house warm. We have 3 indoor heads, 1 in the bedroom, 1 in the office. Those are small heads, and a larger one out here in the open floor plan section of the house. We did not put heat sources in the bathroom or the hall. These get heat passively from the adjoining spaces. This is the outdoor unit. This is the 30,000 BTU air source heat pump. It is manufactured by Mitsubishi. We really like Mitsubishi air source heat pumps. We found that they're extremely reliable. They have an excellent warranty, a 12-year warranty. They're very efficient, they're quiet, and they function well down into temperatures well below 0 degrees. This symbol, the H2I, stands for hyperheat. It is a cold climate heat pump, and it's able to maintain its full rated output to 5 degrees Fahrenheit and continues to produce useful heat down to below -13 Fahrenheit, temperatures that we hardly ever see in our area. This is one of the 3 indoor heads. The other 2 look very similar. These provide both heating and cooling. Air is drawn in the top of the unit and then is passed over a heat exchanger that heats it or cools it. When it's cooling, it also removes moisture. And then it's blown out into the room. And these louvers can be adjusted to either blow air straight out into the room along the ceiling or down to floor level, depending on what the comfort preferences of the occupant are. This is not actually her heat pump. I didn't manage to get a photograph of that in time to put it in the slideshow, but it is the same model that we installed in her house. This is an air source heat pump, meaning it's all electric. And essentially what you have here is a storage tank on the bottom that stores 50 gallons of water and a heat pump on the top that extracts heat from the basement, concentrates it, and then releases it down into the water tank. This is an extremely efficient way to heat hot water. You're no longer relying on um, oil, and it's about 3 times more efficient than a electric water heater of the same capacity, electric resistance water heater. So these are a great technology. We install a lot of these, and they work well in all kinds of applications. Because they do pull heat from the space that surrounds them, you can't put them in a small closet. You need to have a decent sized space. And in general, because they have a little bit of noise associated with them, we don't really want to put them in the living space. We'd much rather put them in a unconditioned basement. So that was the water heating solution we came up with. Just to talk you through some of the economics of this project, I'm going to first present the costs of this project based on the 2018 incentives, and then take you through the current incentives, which are quite a bit richer. So the full cost of the project was about $15,500. The customer financed the project through a smart energy loan, which had a application fee. At that point, NYSERDA was giving a $500 heat pump rebate on air source heat pumps. At that point, we were able to access the assisted home performance, which is a 50% matching grant for the heat pump water heater and for the air sealing. We weren't able to apply it to the heat pump itself. The rules have since changed, and now we could, but at that time, we could only apply it to the water heater and the air sealing. And the Finger Lakes Climate Fund, which made that video I mentioned, also provided a grant. What the Finger Lakes Climate Fund does is receives donations, people that want to offset their carbon emissions from travel or vacation travel, conference travel, but you can also make donations to offset your household emissions. And then what the Finger Lakes Climate Fund does is use that money to support local energy efficiency projects so that they achieve a win-win. They not only achieve, carbon savings because they're able to help make projects happen that wouldn't otherwise be able to happen, but they also help low and moderate income homeowners in our area. So they're a really fantastic organization. I would really encourage you to take a look at what they're doing. I think it's a really exciting model. With all these incentives and rebates taken into account, the net cost to the homeowner was about $10,400. The homeowner used the NYSERDA Smart Energy Loan to finance this amount over 15 years at 3.49%. And so her monthly payments were about $74 a month. So that's how the project penciled out as it was actually installed. Now the incentives have gotten quite a bit richer since then. And then the first time I practiced this slide with Lisa, she said, you sound kind of sad when you talked about all these exciting incentives. And I realized that there was a part of me that was a little bit sad that I wasn't able to access all these incentives for this homeowner. But the good news is that the incentives are really fantastic. If we assume the project cost is the same, it would have changed a little bit, but I just used the same starting cost for this illustration. The air source heat pump rebates, which have now moved from NYSERDA to NYSEG, have gotten quite a bit bigger, and they're based on the total delivered capacity of the system. They're not just a flat $500 per system, but the larger the system, the more the rebate. NYSEG's also offering a $700 rebate on heat pump water heaters. We're now able to apply assisted home performance to this entire work scope, up to a maximum grant of $4,000 for a single family home. The Finger Lakes Climate Fund is still operating and doing its good work. And HeatSmart Tompkins is now accessing incentives for low and moderate income homeowners, which are $2,000 for an air source heat pump, plus an additional $300 for a heat pump water heater. So if we were to take all these incentives into account, we'd bring the net cost of this project down to about $3,600. Now, NYSERDA is in the process, partially, I think, in response to trying to help New York State homeowners in response to the COVID outbreak. They're in the process of rolling out a 0% 15-year loan, which is absolutely fantastic and is one more way that they're bringing green energy improvements within reach. And if we were to finance that $3,571 net cost through this loan, the payments would come out to less than $20 a month. So that's $20 a month to do some air sealing, replace your heating system, and get a new heat pump water heater. In this case, also adding quiet and super efficient cooling to the house. We track the savings from this project. And I think, it's always good to project savings based on our computer models, but it's really reassuring to go back and measure the savings and find out that we're really delivering the savings that we're telling homeowners about. In this project, her oil use before the replacement occurred was about 460 gallons per year, which at the time was costing around almost $1,400. And her electric use was around 3,000 kilowatt hours a year. So by removing the boiler and replacing the heat and hot water system, we're able to eliminate all that oil use. The electric use went up correspondingly. We added about 6,000 kilowatt hours per year. The electric costs here are based just on the cost of the electricity itself and don't include meter charges. So the total energy costs for the house went from almost $1,700 per year down to $942. So we had a net annual savings of about $700 per year in energy. When we break that out on a monthly basis, that's savings of about $61 a month. Now, the loan payments for this project were about $74 a month. So the net cash flow on this project was slightly negative, but for approximately $12 a month, the homeowner is getting a new heating system and a lot of benefits that we mentioned, both in terms of comfort and in terms of getting rid of oil and getting rid of the mess and the liability of a oil tank on our property. So with the old incentives, we had a slightly negative cash flow. If we did the same project under the new incentives, we'd actually have a really nice positive cash flow that would put an extra $40 a month into someone's pocket. And in my last slide, I just wanted to look at how the carbon savings of this project turned out. Before the improvements, the emissions for operating this home were almost 12,000 pounds of carbon dioxide going into the atmosphere each year, with the large majority of that coming from the oil. We calculated these emissions numbers based on emissions factors per gallon of oil and per kilowatt hour of electricity, which varies from location to location around the country, but our grid in upstate New York is actually quite low carbon. We have a lot of hydropower. We have now no more coal, and we're getting increasing amounts of wind and solar. So our grid in upstate New York is green, and it's getting greener. And that's one more reason why replacing fossil fuels with electricity results in big carbon savings. So when we went from oil to heat pumps, we dropped the total household emissions from almost 12,000 pounds a year down to around 4,000 pounds, a 2/3 reduction. After our project was completed, the homeowner went further and installed a 7.2 kilowatt solar system on her roof, which replaced or displaced more of her electric use. So now with that solar system operating, her total household emissions are down under 1 ton. So we went from almost 6 tons of carbon emissions to less than 1 ton. And this was done on a tight budget. So I really am very proud of this project. I feel like it represents something that we did in this house, but we also need to do in every household in our region if we're going to achieve our climate protection goals. And I think this model of air source heat pumps, leveraging available incentives and financing, and combining it with common sense improvements to the building shell represents a really affordable and scalable pathway to get where we need to go in terms of climate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, John. That was a great presentation. I've seen it twice today and it was good both times. So John, can you keep advancing the slides for me just so that we don't have to go through that? So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. It was just a beautiful sight to see that heat pump technology can be in reach for everybody with a little help. And it's great that our local contractors, such as Snug Planet, are so dedicated to making these systems affordable for everybody. So we'd love you all to take the next step with HeatSmart Tompkins, and that's to enroll on our website, heatsmarttompkins.org. And when you enroll, you fill out a very short form, which gives a little information about you. You select which contractors you might be interested in working in from the 4 that are in our program. You can select 1 or all 4 or anything in between. And then they will get in touch with you to give you a free home assessment for your own home. And there's no obligation to you whatsoever. It just starts a relationship with HeatSmart. That means Jonathan and I are at your disposal to answer your questions and help you to all the way through the process, from talking to the installers for the first time through getting something installed in your home this year, if you can, and thinking about the future if this year it doesn't work for you. Although in the future, I don't know if that 0% financing will be available. So that's a limited time offer and that's in response to COVID. Next slide, please. Okay, so thank you so much for listening. And now it's your turn to have a conversation with John. You can also ask questions of me and Jonathan as well. I'm gonna, John, why don't you unshare your screen? And we can all look at each other. At this portion of the webinar, if you're muted and you want to speak, you can unmute and ask John a question. If you want to just type your question into the chat, I will monitor that and I'll read those out. I am looking at all of you in what's called speaker view, so I can see everyone. In gallery view, sorry. So if you're in speaker view, you might want to switch to gallery view and then you can see everyone. Otherwise, speaker view is fine. So who has a question for John Harrod? William, it looks like you're trying to unmute yourself. Is that right? I think I can unmute you. Let's see if I can. All right, there's a question in the chat. Is this process available for a manufactured home on a slab with no basement? John?
And the answer is yes. It's really, I think if we're going to talk about making this type of project widely available, we need to figure out how to do this in manufactured housing. And we have a couple examples where we've done this successfully. In most cases, we can run all the piping external to the house. In some cases, we're actually able to utilize the existing furnace, if there is one, or the existing ductwork, and put a heat pump air handler on there that connects into the existing ductwork. So the short answer is yes, this absolutely is something we can do.
Great, thanks. William, did you have a question?
Yes, can you use this as a supplement heating system and get the incentives? Because I just switched to a gas system.
Right. The incentives are set up in 2 tiers. If you install what we call a displacement approach, where your heat pump is not meeting the full needs of the house, but is supplementing, you can get a $500 rebate from NYSEG. You can also access the financing for that. You don't get the enhanced rebates that you would get if you did a whole house replacement, but there's definitely some funding available.
Thank you.
Next question. Don't be shy.
John, I didn't hear any mention of cooling in the conversion. Is there any air conditioning in that?
Yes. Heat pumps can always cool as well as heat, as opposed to a boiler, which can only heat. So we've now added cooling. What we're finding is that more and more people in our area are cooling with window air conditioners, which are not only horribly inefficient, but quite noisy. And we can add very efficient cooling with these heat pumps, to the extent that it's, the overall impact on your total energy use is going to be very small, and they're very quiet. So yeah, that's definitely one of the things you get when you get a heat pump.
Yeah, I want to add that the air conditioning is even more affordable than the heating. It's extremely inexpensive, and it works really well, and it dehumidifies your home while it's air conditioning as well. And you can run it in just fan mode, just dehumidifying mode, or in cooling, and all 3. So it's really versatile. And what I hear over and over again from HeatSmart customers is, I didn't think I needed air conditioning, but actually I love it, especially as we're getting a little older and it's getting a little warmer. Great question in the chat from Suzanne. She is asking whether HeatSmart and or the installers help people to figure out all the incentives. I'll let you take it, John.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a big part of what we do. Some of these incentives are a little bit complicated to navigate, and we feel that's one of the places where we add some value, is that we try to really understand these, stay current on them, and then connect you up with every possible incentive that would apply to your project.
That's absolutely right. And it can feel a little confusing, the incentives at first. And when the new ones just came out April 1st. So we're actually still figuring out how to tell people about them. So thank you for asking that. The installers are very up on the incentives. And if you're confused at all, Jonathan and I are also very happy to help you. Jordan?
Yeah, hi. My question was about the incentives, and namely what you as installers think would be most helpful to help, to get this rolled out in as many homes as we can.
I'll let you take it, John, and I have something I want to say about that too.
Yeah, I feel like at this point, just helping to get the word out is probably the single biggest thing. What we found is that a lot of people in our area don't know about what's available. And this isn't just the heat pump incentives, but it's also other incentives like Empower New York, which can provide free insulation. And, you know, just having access to that can really help a lot of people. So we're doing a big marketing blitz of our own, sending out postcards, and HeatSmart is doing another marketing thing. We are still, you know, we're trying to adapt our outreach because we can't do a lot of the things that we had been doing in the past, like community meetings. So yeah, we would just love any support just getting the word out there.
Yes, I want to double down on that. We hear from a lot of installers that, you know, HeatSmart programs are trying to do outreach and the companies are trying to do outreach, but really New York State needs to have a public outreach about energy, and particularly home and building energy, because that's not something that the state can take over. It's really a communication with homeowners, building owners, and business owners. This new 0% financing that the state announced as part of its COVID response is fantastic, but we need a lot more of that. And just to make it possible for people, pay as you save, where it's sort of on-bill financing at 0%, with less restrictions based on people's credit scores, et cetera, really makes it accessible for everyone. Those are some of the things we've been working on. Oh,
and you know, that sounds, oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to add, John, I hope you didn't cover this. Maybe I might have just had my attention wander for a minute, but NYSERDA has just released a 0% finance option for energy saving effort works in the home. So you can get a loan. In the examples that John gave, those were interest subsidized rates at 3.5%, but you can now during the few months get a loan that has 0 financing charges associated with it.
Yep, that's John did cover that. Thank you for highlighting that.
Sorry.
So Suzanne has a question in the chat that I think will be interesting to everyone, which is how long from getting your assessment till getting something installed? And I'll let John answer that too, but there's the how long does it normally take, and then there's the how long in the brave new world of COVID-19. So there are sort of 2 separate answers to that. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, that's the big question right now. We are able to do some quotes remotely right now, especially if you're able to send us some photographs and measurements. And, you know, so if you enroll in HeatSmart and then connect with us that way, we can work with you to at least get some initial quotes. We're really hopeful that we'll be able to resume some of this work in May or early June. And at this point, I think we could say that there's going to be a fairly fast timeline. Once we can get back out into the field, there's no reason that from you know, initial site visit to install couldn't be done in 2 or 3 weeks. And that would include building some time in there to navigate the whole financing piece, because that is usually one of the pieces that slows things down.
There is also, I will say that if you have an emergency, like your heat has gone out, the installers are allowed to come in to your home now and replace it with a heat pump. So if you have a boiler that's dead or dying, or a furnace, that can be done on an emergency basis, and they have protocols worked out to make sure everybody is safe during that process. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, but new construction and empty buildings you still can go into. Is that not correct?
With some restrictions, that's correct.
Right. So some work is happening now, but just for a regular home retrofit where you're living in the home, enrolling now is actually the perfect time, because it'll take you some time to get the assessment. You might want more than one assessment. It'll take you some time to think through the assessment. The state is working on getting that 0% application online. It's not even on their website yet. We just have a letter that it's coming. So this is actually a really good time to get the process rolling. And then by sometime this summer, you'll have a brand new heating system. And when it starts to get cold again, or if it's hot, you'll be able to use that. Let me just check the chat here. So Bennett asks, can HEAP money for replacement systems be used for heat pumps? That's a great question for HEAP recipients.
Yeah, and Scott, please feel free to pipe in about this as well. We have never used the HEAP funding in that way. We have been exploring the idea of combining it with assisted home performance to help out people. It comes with its own kind of restrictions, so it's not something we're able to make happen at this point.
Yeah, and John, I don't know if you meant me, Scott, but if you
Yeah.
did, this is Scott Smith from NYSERDA. I had another meeting, so I had to join late. But yeah, so we work pretty closely with the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance that runs the HEAT program, the Heating Energy Assistance program. But they currently only fund in-kind replacements. They have a heating emergency repair and replacement program right now. So if your heating system fails and you actually receive heat benefits, you can get a new heating system, but they only do in-kind replacements right now. That's something that moving forward into the future, we're trying to work with them on, is to try to use some of their resources to do heat pumps in those cases, but it's not something that happens right now.
I just want to give out a shout out to Scott Smith at NYSERDA. He's the administrator for all of these clean heating and cooling communities programs. And, you know, just to give you a little perspective, when the HeatSmart Tompkins program started only a few years ago, there were no incentives for air source heat pumps whatsoever for anybody. And now we have the best ever incentives for air source heat pumps, and they're coming to you from the utilities, not because the utilities thought, oh, we want to give away money, because because a lot of us have made it happen here in New York. And New York State is the leader in rolling out clean heating and cooling. So we're really proud of that. And a lot of that work has emanated here from Tompkins County. So you all should be proud of the work that's happened here. Okay, other questions? It is now 12:45, and this is supposed to be a 45-minute webinar, but we will stay on longer for folks who have questions. I just want to say thank you. If you're going to leave now, I want to thank you for attending this webinar. I will send a follow-up survey, and I hope you'll fill it out. It'll only take you 5 minutes or less. That will allow us to know how we're doing and what questions you have, if you want us to follow up with you, etc. We have another webinar on Thursday with Daily Electric about a geothermal heat pump installation, and then 2 more next week, Halco and NP Environmental, again on Tuesday and Thursday at lunchtime. So I'm not kicking you off. I'll stay here at least until 1, along with John and Jonathan. But for folks who only scheduled 45 minutes, thank you for attending, and really great questions and great presentation. So thanks, everybody. I wanted to read from the chat. Gay Nicholson, who's our partner at Sustainable Tompkins, says that Sustainable Tompkins will bundle your climate fund grant with the extra heat pump incentive for low-income homeowners. And low to moderate income in Tompkins County, a family of 4 can be making, I can't remember what it is, Larissa, is it like $76,000 a year and still qualify? I'm making up that number, but it's in that ballpark. Maybe it's 80,000. That information is available on our website and on the Sustainable Tompkins website. So more people may qualify than realize for some of these extra grants. %80 of county median income, that's right. I know that a public school teacher and his wife with 3 kids qualify, a Ithaca high school teacher. So, yeah. Any further questions? You've got our 100% attention. Thanks for the great questions so far. Okay. Well, thanks for having lunch with us. I hope to see you on Thursday for the geothermal webinar. And it was great seeing everybody today. And go out and enjoy the sun if you have a chance.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody.